It's a zoo over here, so what are you gonna
With the animals and
do? Myself,
yourself.
street construction, opening up in New York. It's much louder. Kids are on the street, all kinds of stuff. So
Kids. Ugh.
yeah, it's school. I guess they're all back in school.
Good old New York. Well, today is Thursday, April 29th, 2020. No, 2021. This is the Producer's Happy Hour.
We're two producers on opposite coasts. Lawrence Lewis is in LA. I'm Sister Christian in New York. And we're chatting over drinks about what it means to be a good producer. Of course, understanding that it's more important today than ever before.
And we want to hear from you. We love to hear from you. So please join the conversation at producershappyhourgroup.com or email us at producershappyhour@gmail.com. Send us your questions, your comments, your ideas for show topics, anything you want. And better yet, do it as a voice memo so we can hear your voice instead of our rotted old corpse voices.
Yeah. So, hey, Lawrence.
Hey, Christian.
Right. And also, please help us out by rating, review us, like us on Apple Podcast, because it really helps other people like you find this show.
And if you have any questions for us, don't forget, I didn't make a sound effect. Office hours are open. Christian and I believe in mentorship and sharing information in this business, which is more crucial now than ever before. So if you are new to the industry or are stuck somewhere in your career and need some advice, hit us up. Same email, producershappyhour@gmail.com, and just let us know that you would like to have office hours with us.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about this and I was thinking yes, we would love to critique your career and let you know what could benefit it. Well, no, I mean, just like Lawrence and I just, letting everybody know, we just spoke at a convention, and it was very interesting because we were letting people know what it is like to deal with a producer and what a producer is expecting. So I feel like we can give in office hours that perspective of, yes, what you're doing looks fantastic, especially to you, but what does a producer see when they look at your website or your resume or your
reel or your yeah,
exactly.
How are you presenting yourself?
Let us help you with our experience.
Exactly. It's always great to get a second set of eyes on whatever it is that you're doing and how you're presenting yourself, because I think that's the hardest thing is freelancers. How do you present yourself?
Yeah, we've talked about it often. Like I don't work with other producers, so it's good to know what other producers think.
Exactly. All right, Christian, what are you drinking today? It's happy hour.
Today I'm having a gin and tonic. So an old tried and true that I love, and just one gin and tonic can actually melt some of the day away.
Well, I think that's the whole point of a cocktail, right?
Is it?
Is it? My mom used to have gin and tonics. She would have gin and tonics and scotch and sodas.
Ooh, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, not at the same time.
Woman.
Not at the same time.
Oh, one in each hand.
Choose one train for the night. But what kind of gin?
Scotch and soda is like quite a drink.
Yeah. What gin are you drinking? Or is it just?
It's a local gin here in New York City called Green Hook. And they are quite delicious. And sometimes they will do a specialty gin that's, seasonal. It's nice. They do a good job.
Nice.
And what are you having today, Lawrence?
I am having a Aperol Spritz, which is one of my staples. The go-to. And for those
it's springtime.
It's springtime. It's a typical drink that everyone has around 4 or 5 o'clock, especially on the coasts of Italy. They're €3 and usually comes with like chips, and it's aperitivo. It's Aperol, which is kind of an orange liqueur, Prosecco, and then a splash of soda water.
Nice.
It's delicious.
Yes. And then you're in the desert this week, right?
I am in the desert, so it's even more refreshing than normal. But yeah, I'm in lovely Joshua Tree. Just chilling out. What's going on with you? It's been a week.
It has been a week, and a little bit, and you and I got to spend some time together on last Thursday and Sunday, giving this talk that that I alluded to earlier.
Yes.
After that, it's, we've, last week's show is definitely letting everybody know how busy we feel it is getting out there in the temperature And I think that that's still kind of where we're at. It's definitely a cruise market right now.
Yeah,
name your own price. Yeah, especially in non-New York and LA areas, it is quite busy.
Well, in areas where there's like, the talent pool is 1, 2, or 3 deep, right? So everybody's working. And
everybody's working and everybody's doing several jobs at one time right now. So myself, I'm just getting back in the swing of things after being off a little bit and, doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm decompressing out in the desert. I'm on hold for a couple jobs, did a couple jobs, bidding a couple jobs. It's kind of back to this weird juggling of, not knowing what your schedule is. Like during the pandemic, I knew my schedule for 3 months. I knew exactly what I was doing every day for 3. Now it's like, oh, well, I might be booked on this job. So that means I'm going to be tied up these days, but then I'm bidding these days and this other job might happen. So it's like, back to the confusion of random freelance work.
Exactly. And the bidding is very interesting too, because, the numbers being asked to thrown together now are like within hours.
Oh yeah. Within hours. And I went through a cost consultant thing not too long ago. And it was interesting because, while they were, telling me to reduce my PAs by a ridiculous amount, they were like, we don't think you have enough PPE. You should add more. And I was like, but you want me to only have 3 PAs?
Right. That's so fantastic.
Okay.
Well, the more I add in PAs, the more PPE we need. So.
Yeah, I know. It's like, sure, I'll add more masks, but having manpower might also be important. So, it's just been interesting. It's a learning curve. Things are opening up, but are a little different and crazy in new and unusual ways.
I'm hoping that it will even out a bit, but, I'll keep my fingers crossed on that.
Well, yeah. I mean, evening out, I don't even know what evening out looks like.
Well, I know. I mean, I was once told, and it stuck with me for a long time, that budgets are like water, right? And so you take a little from this area, and then all of a sudden this area goes up a little bit. It all just kind of evens out.
Yes.
And because you take from, Peter to pay Paul, it is the old expression, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping it'll even out, but my suspicion is that it will level off, meaning this is the level we'll be at for a while. We'll see, though.
We'll see.
Exactly.
Well, then that brings us to the topic of today's show: remote jobs. Dun dun dun.
We all know how to do them now.
Yeah. But so we all know. I think.
Well, we all had to self-taught. We all kind of, figured out the best way individually, because of course there wasn't a class about it.
No.
We all individually figured out how to do remote jobs. I know that I last year had several experiences where my, the budget for a 1-day in-person film day with 10 talent would turn into those talent living anywhere in the country and us sending remote teams to each house, but not having any additional money. So we all figured out how to remotely film or do remote shooting when we had to, faced, with client expectations and deadlines.
So there's a lot to unpack here, because there's this kind of remote thing as being kind of a catch-all phrase, right? So we've got remote jobs where you're directing and producing remotely.
From your house.
From your quote-unquote house. And then you've got remote video village, which is when you're on set and the director's on set, but the ad agency is not on set. They're connecting remotely. But then we have these jobs where it's kind of a combination, where there are some agency or client on set, the rest are on Zoom, you are there and the director's there, or is it possible the director is somewhere else but you're there? I guess that is a possibility too.
Oh, yeah.
So what have you been seeing? I'll let you know what I've been doing, but what have you been doing? What have you been seeing mostly?
I've been seeing it all. I've been seeing where the network or client agency are remoting in, and also too, a couple of them who happen to live in the city will stop by. So there's that. I've been on jobs where I'm present, but the director isn't.
See, I haven't done that yet.
That was a good one. But clients, thankfully have trusted us and do not need to be remoted in. And then I have a job coming up that is a one client on set with the possibility of having others look at it as well as we're filming. And that's where your attention as a producer is drawn, in many ways, because normally the person who comes in to be on set with you is a creative. It's not the producer. So you actually, in all intensive purposes, are wrangling two directors. So, the client-based creative director and the director that is your handful to begin with.
So this has happened on the last few of my jobs. And I'll ask your advice on this. But what I've done when it's supposed to be a remote video village, but then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? I might send the creative director out there. I always say, totally welcome, but they have to come with a producer.
Oh, interesting.
I really try and make that a thing because it's an awkward situation to not be that creative director's producer and try and step in when they might be overstepping without their producer physically present. So I have said that. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that, you can get, of course you can.
Nothing's fucking impossible.
Nothing's
right?
impossible.
We're trained to say that. Exactly. Oh, everyone say yes.
Yeah. But you can't get into weird power play when you're not that person's producer.
Totally. And that's where I would say, of course, all are welcome. If a producer doesn't come, just know that I will be the boss of your creative and be telling them yes or no. So it would be up to you whether or not you want to bring a producer or not. Otherwise, I'm going to be shooting shit down.
But there also could be things that we let go through that we don't know. Maybe the account people have already shot down.
Exactly.
Or legal has shot down. We don't have that information. So we can't
And then in edit, they're like, why do we only have this? It's like, talk to your creative.
Yeah.
Like,
or why did you shoot it this way? Legal said no. But like their producer who had that information wasn't there to shut that shit down. And maybe that was something we let happen.
Right, because the Zoom portion of this means that people can log off their camera and go be doing other things. Sometimes they are expected to do other things while there's filming because technically you're not on set, so you can still work, quote unquote, which I think is bogus but I understand what the limitations we are all placed on all of us these days. But you're right. Like, so at a point when nobody else is watching and the director and the creative and you have a discussion and then you do it, what happens then? Whose fault is it? Are you breaking your contract? Like, who knows?
Yeah. So it's funny because I sidebar. I know somebody who does a lot of Zoom calls. They've made a video of them looking at the Zoom camera and nodding and maybe turning and writing something down and looking back up. And they
play that.
They play that when they have to like go to the bathroom or something.
That's like in every 80s, security footage.
Yes.
Like if you're going to steal from a museum, you need to create that 5-minute loop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we should start a company. Well, I did because we should start a company that offers that to people. We'll create your Zoom.
That's excellent.
We're geniuses.
Your Zoom stand-in.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the other thing that I would do is for these combo jobs, like you said, the combo ones get really complicated because you have to now manage in-person clients, and you have to manage the Zoom, and then you have to manage your director, and of course you have to manage your crew. So I'd love to hear what you do, but if there's people in person, I put the agency producer in charge of the Zoom and make them handle that whole thing.
Well, I don't think that it is something that listen, I've never said in my life, that's not my job. You know what I mean? But I do not have the capacity especially on jobs that do not have, like we've discussed multiple times, the jobs no longer have money.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, two video villages back in the day, whenever you would have a agency and a client were separate and that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
we were all in person was, hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
Now, like having the virtual and the in-person is the agency producer should be and absolutely, is the one who should be handling that. Does it always happen? No. But the expectation should be discussed ahead of time because things will slip through the cracks and all of a sudden you'll find yourself over, time-wise. And it's only because of managing and trying to gather notes from multiple sources.
Yeah.
That has always been the agency producer's job, and it should be 100%. Now as well.
They should be coming at you with one unified voice, with one collected set of notes, and it's not all over the place. And when you split the team up like that, it doesn't always come through unless you're very organized.
Exactly. And as organized as we can be, you could still, the nuances just need to be handled by somebody else when you're up at set trying to figure out why you're behind. Yeah, exactly. What do you find, do you have any tips or find any sort of weird workflow kinks when everybody is on the Zoom? I do. I think that it's important to establish from the beginning who will be talking. And establish whether, or explain to everybody that there will be a speaker on set. So one voice should be speaking so that the talent can hear that. But any note passing should happen via, what I normally do is separate it completely out and do a group text.
Yeah.
Which is yet another thing, but it's not in the Zoom because the cameras are usually hooked up to the Zoom. And so maybe if you have a streaming tech or a VTR person, they're hooked up to the Zoom as well. So having those types of texts in the Zoom can be problematic.
Yeah.
So then you have to open up something else. So it's usually, iMessage or whatever. We have a group and then we talk about it. And then it's like, okay, then you go back and your voice of God, as they used to say, across the set saying, we should do this.
Speaks down upon you.
I also request that the director or photographer wear earbuds.
Yeah.
So that when we do...
So it's not booming out over and the actors don't hear it.
Exactly. So there's just, but if it is a speaker situation, then you actually have to really diplomatically pass a note.
Makes sense.
I feel like you should be working this out ahead of time before you all get on the call and are testing the link.
Oh yeah.
How do you handle it?
I mean, the same thing. I think a lot of agencies already are communicating in Slack. So I don't get involved in that. I'll do a sidebar text chain with the agency producer and whoever else they want to have kind of on that.
Yes.
But then they're having their own conversations on Slack with different people. I'm not a fan of Slack. I'll use it if I have to, but I try not to.
Well, I mean, they're not a sponsor, but I could be changed, Slack, if you're listening.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, setting up all those channels of communication is really important. And not
ahead of time, because somebody's bound to ask you, like, how is the communication going to work? So my tip of the day would be to type all this out and then begin the conversation with your counterpart, with explaining how you feel the day should go and see if they have any input.
That's great. I have a tip of the day, and this is more about tech than anything.
Okay.
So are you familiar with, obviously, we know Zoom or BlueJean or whatever video conference app, but there's the way you get the signal is either through something called QTake or UpVision.
Yes.
UpVision is a little less reliable, but a whole lot cheaper than QTake. Right? Go figure.
Yes.
That's what you get what you pay for.
And I can tell you there's a few choice agency people out there who are like, QTake, do you have QTake? Like they all know that.
Yeah,
they
it's
all
like
know the word.
we learned this new word and everyone's excited about it. QTake. But the reality is, for most shoots, they don't need to receive the QTake feed directly. And you pay by how many people log on to your feed, right?
Yes.
So that's why UpVision's cheaper, because it's like, I don't know, $5 a person or something. It's really stupid cheap. Don't quote me on that. And QTake's much more expensive, but you can just have one feed. You, the producer, I always have my production team rent me a separate laptop because I still need to work on my real laptop.
Interesting.
So separate laptop. That's that's my video village. and I get the Q-Take feed, one single feed. I share that screen in Zoom.
Interesting.
And they can watch it. So you don't have to then have 10 or 15 people feeding off a Q-Take. You just host it in Zoom. For most shoots, that's okay. The quality does reduce a little bit. But so if you're doing product or food or something tabletop-y, it might not work out so well. So you then, for those kind of shoots, you might want to actually have everyone grab the Q-Take feed directly. Right. But for most stuff, most people just chatting, talking about whatever, just hosting it in Zoom's perfectly fine. So
nice. And I hook my Zoom up to the iPad and I walk around with it. So if I need to go to the director and like put them on Zoom, then I walk over with my iPad. I'm like, look at us. Just as a little sidebar. Yeah, exactly. So one computer, one iPad. But yes, the concept is right there. So.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all about setting up the communication early and know exactly who's in charge of speaking to whom.
Exactly.
Right.
Which is kind of the thing, you know, it's, here, another good tip is, just know that, if you are at the camera and you're chatting about your previous night or, how, horrible the breakfast was, every single person in the village can hear you.
Yeah.
I had that yesterday and I would mute the camera and then, somebody would come back and start to talk to us and I would holler out, "Oh, we can't hear you. I think you muted." I did that 3 times before I started texting them and saying, "You guys fucking know that we can hear you, right? So please stop discussing this."
Yeah.
I know it was so bad. I know. But I mean, I was trying to really curve it myself by just hitting mute when I would start to hear it and then send a little text. Yeah. And then the text got more aggressive as the day went on.
These
shut
things,
your mouth.
These things are really, really tricky. You have to think you can't just step away and talk and have confidential conversations. You basically have a microphone on you. If you're anywhere near a computer, you don't know that a mic could be open and they could be listening to your whole conversation. So that is another.
Yeah. And some people will say, "Oh, can people hear me?" And I'll be like, you should assume at any given point on a set these days that everyone can hear you. There's no reason to discuss what you're discussing. And most of the time it isn't bad. It's just like chatter. But I can absolutely have been on a Zoom call where somebody's been, "Oh, really? Did that happen?" And then it's become then it's all Video Village has to talk about is the one thing that the second AC said.
Oof.
I know. And it's, and I always make jokes and we get out of it pretty quickly, but it just is one less thing. Cause anybody out there listening, if you were a crew member to begin with, you wouldn't be over at Video Village discussing your, woes. Right.
Exactly.
So then just understand that, it would be as if you walked into the couch area and started to complain about something.
Christian, for people that I know this is only a podcast, but I wish this was a video show where people could see that you've got loving, adorable cats jumping up and on you and around you.
It's like all morning they sleep. And then, especially on Thursdays, they get up and they're like, "Oh my God, there's something happening at the desk." Well, we should be right over there too.
Is it podcast time?
Yeah. You need us here, right? We're helping, right? So.
All right. What are our takeaways? Our takeaways are set up the communication channels early.
Yes, exactly. Set up early and make sure that everybody understands the capabilities of what you're doing and that you understand their expectations.
Yeah. Oh, and
did I just
you did
one sentence?
And you're on a hot mic all day long.
I know it was just a simple reminder to the crew that everyone can hear everything you're saying. So if you wouldn't say it to your mother, don't say it to us.
Exactly.
Or if you would say it to your mother, go for it. Whatever. So Producers Happy Hour was created with the help of Christopher Daniels, who is a treatment writer, and he also created our fantastic logo and branding.
Fantastic. And Kyle Puccia is a music composer for film, TV, and commercials. He created our show music.
And this episode was edited by Eric Beals.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We're back next week.
Be safe out there and send us your voice recordings or emails to producershappyhour@gmail.com.
Christian, how do people reach you directly?
sisterchristianproduces.com. And Lawrence, if people want to get you, how can they?
2 ways, voiceoflawrence.com for voiceover work and lawrencetLewis.com for producing work.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
So much fun. Bye.